Gwen, welcome. Alberto Heredia, Vladimir Rodríguez. So good to have you here. Welcome. Leiner, sorry, Lucia Gonzalez, and Daniel, thank you for being here. Lariza, she will be the moderator today. Lariza Pizarro, welcome.
Vladimir, ¿cómo estás? Bien.
Bueno, buenos días.
Good morning. We start this important session. We will have an exchange on the meaning of cooperation work and complementary work between the state and civil society for peace building work that has been of which has been part of the Truth Commission. For this panel or for this dialogue, we are joined by Gwen Burnyeat, who is an English academic, anthropologist, and expert in transitional justice construction. She has worked from the anthropology perspective in the relationships between the state, the policy, the peace conflict, history, ethnography, and the Colombian policy. She has participated in the process of the Truth Commission through Let's Be Around the dialogue in the United Kingdom, and in the process, Let's the Truth Be Told. We are also assisted by Alberto Heredia, economist, magister in project management and specialized in economic and social assessment of projects, executive CEO of Querida, and in the framework of the commission, he participated in different processes as the acknowledgement, the communication strategies, the co-creation of artistic and cultural settings, as is the case of the Ruta por la Verdad. And today he leads with the territorial team the commitment of the network. We also joined by Daniel Bedoya, who is a young leader who participated in the group of youngs of Generation in Antioquia. Today is volunteer in the territorial process. He also has participated in different activities of the Truth Commission as to be able to change the road in culture of youngsters for peace and truth, and has assisted several processes in Medellin and Antioquia. Is also Vladimir Rodríguez, who is the High Commissioner for the Rights of Victims, Peace and Reconciliation of the Mayor City Council of Bogota, and is an expert of victims' rights, peace, reconciliation, reparation, comprehensive reparation, and has participated in the construction of strategies for the implementation of the comprehensive system of peace, truth, reparation, and non-repetition. And, of course, as highlighted by Maria, we are fortunate to have the Commissioner Lucia Gonzalez. I'd like, without further ado, to start this conversation, this dialogue, this exchange with the intervention of Gwen, who will share some bullets to develop this dialogue. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well? First of all, thank you very much, Maria, the Commission, for having me here to be a part of this event. This is truly an honor to participate in this event. I want to tell you quite a bit what's my background. I did my research, doctoral research on the pedagogy of peace on the government of Santos. The groundwork was in the Office of the Commissioner of Peace, which is a research that is published with a book in English, which is La Cara de la Paz, the Face of Peace. One of the great conclusions that I found in that research is that the government of Santos invested effort and human resources and financial resources in the negotiation, but not too much on leading the society with him to face this society for peace, to create a partnership, a state society to move on with peace. It becomes common to say that there was not pedagogy or education of the agreement. That's not true. There were efforts, and I can bear witness to it. It was the first time in the world that there was pedagogy of a peace agreement in a big scale. That was not considered as necessary before. Maybe because we are in the post-truth stage. Some people of the pedagogy team of the High Commissioner of Peace were members of the Commission, integrated the Commission, and that president was an important influence in the work of the Commission. The OECP made an alliance between the state and the society gradually, with a very annoying, pesky work of building trust in a diverse distrust context in the state because of the actions of the state in the conflict, as well as the perception that the state had abandoned many places of the country, and that mistrust in the country is relevant for the work of the Commission. I believe that we learned a lot from that background, and my book bear witness to those lessons learned in the peace pedagogy. But especially the pedagogy was made up of few people in comparison to the people in charge of the negotiation. And the whole team was funded in comparison to the rest of the OCP by international cooperation, not by the government. Across the board, I believe that if the government invests its resources to demonstrate where they are prioritizing, that few prioritization in the relationship between the state and the society is reflected in the referendum and the peace agreement. And then you have this deficit of legitimacy, turning everything into a more difficult scenario for implementation. With the Truth Commission, there was a different chance to build a partnership between the pro-peace state society to recover the legitimacy lost in the referendum. This led to what the Commission has called the work in network with partners. It's a good proposal to encourage the work of the Commission in the ownership of the society. But that task was made in the context, in an adverse context, where everything that had to do with the agreement had that lack of legitimacy. I feel proud to say that I am part of that partner network, which I am part of a peace building organization. I live in England, but I visit Colombia often. And during this visit to Colombia, I have had the opportunity to accompany some of the territorial tours, including with Lucia, where the commissioners during the last 2 months have been doing the task to disclose the results of their work throughout the country. And I want to thank the Commission for that opportunity. Historical opportunity to assist that national tourney was a beautiful experience, and I learned a lot. I was in 3 meetings with different audiences in the coffee growing angle, Orava, in social organizations, entrepreneurs, and local authorities especially. And I've been participating in joint work led by the Commission, Let the Truth Be Told, Have the Truth Be Told, which is by a community and network of pedagogical practices all over the country to share and exchange tools, educational tools to teach about the legacy of the Commission. All these spaces I have been able to see and document the reactions, questions, and concerns of different sectors vis-a-vis the Commission. My reflections come from this perspective and the comparisons that I do with the background of the education, the peace education strategy of the Santos government. The analysis of the Commission was that more ownership had during the work, more ownership would happen during this post-report stage. And this is important for 2 reasons. One, to teach history at school, for children to grow up with the message that this should never happen again. I am English, and when I grew up at school, I think that we saw the Second World War, World War the Second, like 3 times in the history books. We watched the picture of the gas cameras, and we understood that something severe and unjust happened, and some Jews with whom I shared school had families, relatives that lived that experience, and that should never happen again. Appropriation ownership is important to reach, for that message to reach the new generations. And secondly, of course, to surround the implementation of the recommendations of the report. Across the board, transitional justice acknowledges what is called in the outreach in Spanish could be like spreading or dissemination, to communicate to the society the work of the agencies of the transitional justice, either in special tribunals, courts, processes of reparation, or truth commissions. This is very important because usually there is a big gap between the efforts of institutions of transitional justice that oftenly are sophisticated and use many resources both from the state and the cooperation and the understanding that the society has of those processes.
En últimas, el propósito del
Lastly, the purpose of transitional justice is to help society to acknowledge and heal the past, to flip the page and move on to a better future. But if you don't know that there has been a commission of truth or don't understand what was done, how can you reach that result? The problem in the transitional justice as a field is that outreach or that awareness receives less financing, less funding, is not developed enough, and not studied. Of the few studies that have been made, there are some findings to explain a rational approach does not lead to the understanding and support, global support to those processes. But what is most important is who dominates the political narrative and who influences the political imaginary of society and the most of the society. The problem of the peace education of the government of Santos was seen as a technical stuff, something that could be explained and legitimate with rational explanations, which is a problem with the paradigm of the liberal peace that is promoted from the international community. But peace is a political thing in every aspect.
es política porque
It's political because it implies negotiations between the stakeholders of the establishment and the society. Political because it implies reforms in amendments in the socioeconomic structure. And sociopolitically, we understand political as the way how human beings coexist and organize themselves, and a process where it is unavoidable the confrontation between different groups and opinions. So peace is political because it implies relationships, sometimes difficult relationships. Work in network with partners with the commission was political because the work of a truth commission is a work to build relations. It implies to build a critical mass, to organize networks, to build narratives, maybe not hegemonic ones, but strong ones, with the power to influence the transformation in reality. The future success of the original purposes of the Commission will depend now on what will happen with the legacy of the partners network. Some data of documents that I received from the Commission. Over these 3.5 years, they had more than 3,000 partners, including 47% social organizations, 18% are public institutions, 12% international community, 11% academic community, 8% media, 2.2% entrepreneurs, 0.9% political person, 0.5% the advisory committee of the commission. These partners helped organize meetings, acknowledgement and accountability, social dialogue, and to reach different audiences, to invite people to do interviews. Their participation was paramount to help build trust between a skeptic society and an state agency. Now that the commission disappears, the future and the legacy is in the hand of this network that has goals in this post-report goals. First, to disclose the report in the transmedia platform. Second, to promote the use and ownership of the files that the commission delivers. Third, to continue with process and dialogue of recognition, coexistence, and non-repetition. Fourth, to achieve commitments in the incidents of implementation and follow-up of the commitments in coordination with the follow-up committee. Now, the important thing is not what the Commission did. In the academia, we can spend the next decades discussing on if was well done or not. The important thing now is the use that will be given to this tremendous material that is being delivered. There are 25 agendas agreed with different partners, 8 national agendas and 17 territorial agendas that include one project to counteract this misinformation about the report, multiple projects to mobilize youngsters, for example the B plus generation, projects to reincorporate the report and the legacy, the formal and informal education, dialogue processes and acknowledgement of accountability and appropriation of use of the files. I believe that the Commission learned a lot of the background of peace education of the Santos government. On the one hand, the territorial presence of local liaisons Instead of visits of people from Bogota, which was the main, not the unique, but the main modality of education of the High Commissioner office, the Commission had people in the territory who maintained offices there, building relationships gradually connected to local realities. As one officer of the Commission said in one meeting where I was in Uraba, in one meeting with partners, having this audience full of partners is not a matter of one week of calls. It's a work of years. And I have been witness of how territorial liaisons are committed personally. Many of them now will continue to be partners now that they will finish their work. I was able to witness in the tour the number of initiatives that is being created from civil society to disclose and educate on the report. It's especially noteworthy the support of youngsters, young people. In an event in the Antioquia University, there was we were overbooked in the Camilo Torres auditorium. There were more than 1,000 people. There was not enough where to put all these people. One of the big challenges is the fact that in those events, you receive the people with awareness. You call them to preaching the chorus. Meanwhile, I used to visit the cafeterias and I asked the taxi drivers, the people where I used to go, I asked them, did you know that in this city this event was taking place about the commission? And the most of people didn't know that there is a commission and they don't know where it is. So, precisely, out of the questions and remarks, common remarks that I documented in these spaces was how to send this message beyond the regular audience, how to reach the denialist people. These are difficult questions. The task is to reach those broader audiences and to counteract the opposition. Now it's in the hand of the partners network. But I do believe that the great advantage of the Commission vis-a-vis the backgrounds of the peace education is that there will be no referendum to approve or to pass or reject the report. That's very positive. The President Petro committed when he received the recommendations. He committed to have the report sent to the last nook in Colombia, and we should work to make it comply to fulfill. But it's important to send it before the current government to decentralize that effort, to disseminate. I believe that the international community will be able to play a key role to finance the report presented by different civil society organizations, each of them with their own style, their audiences, and their methodologies. However, I believe there is a risk to finish the proliferation of small projects that could be shallow or have no impact at all. We should maintain the effort of coordination. For example, the project that I mentioned, that the truth be told, let's have the truth be told. The education initiative should be connected to the government efforts, especially the promise of Alejandro Gaviria to send the government to the report to the informal education. The other questions that I found had to do with the adverse context to do the work of the commission while the conflict remains. One woman in the hearings in Pereira said, when you were listening to the horrors of war, we were leaving violence in the streets. And one deputy in Antioquia said, who will tell the truth that happened after 2018? The great challenge of the Partners Network is how to use the report as a tool, a political tool, both in education and surrounding the recommendations and the work of the follow-up committee to contribute to the effort to finish the conflict and build a future full of peace. And this sends me back to my assertion that peace is political. Many people in the event said that it was difficult to bring the mayors to the events of the commission. We should have a strong work to do this year to commit the local candidates in the next elections and their education secretaries. All of us here recognize that without the commitment of Gustavo Petro, we were today in a different scenario for the legacy of the Commission. And I believe that for the legacy to have the desired impact, we should build those alliances between the state and society and also with the territory. I will finish here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gwen. It's an interesting approach that you give us here with your testimony, and you're emphasizing the key points for dialogue today. I would like to start this exchange by asking you, all the attendees and panelists, what's your perception? Is there anything particularly interesting in the relationship with the Commission that will set new ways to relate the civil society and the state, establish relationships between them? It's interesting how the opinion leaders and the citizens in general forget that the Commission is part of the state. But there is like a historical antagonism between the state and the civil society. As a pioneer of transformation, how have you seen this cooperation, and what's interesting about it in your opinion, and what does it mean, this dialogue for the continuous dialogue? Who would like to start? Myself? Okay, let's do it. Okay. I like to share so many things. I'll try to be brief, but I'll start with a lesson learned in the peace and development programs. But it was highlighted. Somebody who's not here with us today, but it is Gabriel Turriago. He was a great master, and he told us that conflict in the end is a problem of governance. We were talking about governability, but talking about governance as well. And it shows the capacity of the stakeholders in a country to be able to address structural problems in a society. Finally, they translate into structural issues that originate the conflict. I like to bring this reflection to the table because to share my opinions on the Commission, I would have to talk about what governance means. On a broad sense, it is a constant construction and building of trust, credibility, legitimacy, and it is a two-way effort from the government to the institutions, the civil society, and the civil society to the government, so they can work jointly in the promotion of development or peace building. This is what I wanted to bring here because it is a definition that shows the framework for these lessons learned from the Commission built as a state institution and building relationships with the civil society. These are three elements that I want to highlight. One, the Commission performed in the highest uncertainty during the recent Colombian time. The statistics would show that 60% of the Colombians thought that Colombia was not in the right path. But this year, in February, April, the perception was 80%. And in 4 years, in these 4 years is where the Commission performed. This is a scenario of uncertainty where the Commission generated lots of hope, not only on the people who participated, but also hope in the country, hope in the future, hope to keep believing in the transition into peaceful coexistence. And the question is why? Why is there this hope? I have 3 or 4 findings. Number one, there's a change of paradigm on how to manage a public institution. We are used to the citizen having to go to the public institution to demand their rights, and that's business as usual. Then we have reflected on it, and the Commission is a benchmark. And there are little other benchmarks that the public institution would go to approach the civil society. This is a paradigm shift that implies that people will feel the institution at if it was its own. people feel the Commission is their own. That's so paramount. I hope this would happen with the entire public institutions. This is how we should work. This is an important paradigm shift. Number two, the Commission is an example of a new social contract. The Transitional Justice considers this is important. It was inclusive. It was guaranteeing, protecting the rights of victims, in this case, the right to the truth, and inviting public institutions to enter the scenario of change, to recover that trust, legitimacy that guarantees governance and actual governance. That's our second element. Number three, which is relevant, is the example of leadership, political, ethical, democratic leadership by the Commission. It was shown to the country from a state institution, clear performances, thinking about collective good with a temporary mandate, but showing that ethics can be seen and observed by the public servants. With those three elements, we can talk about why we have a partner network, why is it so powerful, and why we will be it was a partner of the truth and will be in the future. Thank you, Alberto. In this moment, you represent the local state. Vladimir, what is the possibility to generate partnerships between local and institutional instances to guarantee the sustainability of the legacy of the Commission? Thank you, Lariza. As Alberto was talking, I was thinking that we could write down a PhD thesis in political sciences, as one was mentioning. The discussion between the Commission, the civil society organizations, the State Commission. It's a complex scenario, but in the end, I would like to first say hello to Father Francisco, the commissioners, and the organizations here, the victims of the conflict who are watching us, following us. This is a debate that may seem odd under certain conceptual categories, but during the last years, the Commission faced a paradox, special paradox. Being part of the state, they had a lack of a loss of legitimacy from the government. They suffered this, and the government was supposed to be coordinating the peace policies, which is in Law 001. When you go back, the Commission was born in law integrated to the Constitution to develop state policy, and people like me who are peace advisors, we should be under that mandate. But in the end, I thank recognition and acknowledgement of the Mayor's office, the members of the cabinet, my articulation and coordination during these 2 years and a half. But this is our duty. We are just doing our job as public servants, as part of the state, as an institutional scenario. We accompany, support the Commission in the search for truth, the generation of strategies, educational processes, for the guarantees of non-repetition based on truth. We have fulfilled, to the best of our ability. This has been wonderful. Between two state institutions focusing on the truth and guaranteeing the progress on the guarantees for the armed conflict victims and progress on non-repetition guarantees. More than a piece of news, this is the point of discussion. The Colombian state, this Colombian society are two phases of the same debate. The Colombian state, during the existence of the Commission, understood it was a constitutional mandate. No, some local governments understood it departmental governments. Civil society organizations saw the constitutional effort from the state, the initiatives. On the other hand, the discussion of the relationships with civil society organizations and the victims, in which the Commission, I would like to thank everyone. Father, we are thankful to you, but I would like to thank all the Commission staff who performed such a titanic task. They protected, safeguarded the peace, the implementation of the agreement. Before, a government that never understood this was a historical milestone to overcome the dynamic of violence and reproduction of violence as a result of the conflict in different territories. I would like to break protocol here and acknowledge a person who lost his or her life looking for the truth. I would like to make a tribute. Helena Lopez, she helped to draft this report and a better country. When we were listening to the president and vice president, especially the president, saying that the roadmap and other topics related to total peace and the state as a rule of law, some recommendations from the Truth Commission. Thank you. Thanks to all of you and Elena. We're going to live in a better country. I hope that it happens. That the work of the Commission is part of the Constitution and the rights of the Colombians for non-repetition of the horrors of the conflict, to build, based on the truth, a future, and understanding that the recommendations as part of the function of the state to become a public policy in the development plan of President Petro. This is how we see the meeting of the minds of this administration, with concrete plans and projects and the development plans of the different leaders who are going to be elected in 2-year time. I see here people from UTLs. Guys, there's a lot of normative standard work to do. These spaces regularly issue recommendations, but I would like to invite the Congress people and the government to develop the regulations after legislation 001, 002 and the statutes. We need to consolidate tools that allow dissemination exercises, but also actual transformation in the structure of the states and the institutional architecture and structure, so that the victims of the conflict, the armed conflict, the organizations of civil society, the workers, female and male workers of the Truth Commission, and everyone who has been looking for the truth, for non-repetition, this should become a concrete reality beyond the territories, beyond the discourse, in terms of the implementation of plans, policies, goals, concrete goals that will transform the reality that has fed or fueled the armed conflict for years, as seen in the thousands of reports by the Commission. I think, in my opinion, and the mayor's office also thought about it, when the advisory council was created in Bogota, we tried to integrate what we need to do, our duties, and this is for closing. It would be nice that Bogota and other territorial entities or bodies have performed transformations to protect, to progress in the legacy of the Commission, in the comprehensive system. The answer is, it's not only nice, this is a duty, political constitutional duty. As you mentioned it, the decisions are political in the state, in the government. When we have these policies integrated into the Constitution, we have guarantee and observance for the roadmap to transform the state and guarantee the citizen right to truth. drafting it some other way as an institutional body. And something else to close, please. Bear with me. 18% were of the partners were public institutions. I don't know the number, the curve, but it shouldn't be like that. The 1,186 municipalities, all of them in the framework of their constitutional duty should be transforming institutions based on the peace building, based on the entire system, including the out of court truth, the legal truth, judicial truth, the restoration processes, to be able to coach or support those victims and those deponents in the processes looking for disappeared people, transforming the realities of the territories, so that at last we have in this country, as the president mentioned, a second chance for land, so that it is concrete with serious, true tools. Thank you, Vladimir. Daniel, from your experience on territorial processes, could you tell us about the relationship with the Commission from a innovation work with young people? Hello to everyone today. We are so happy, but the flower festival is happening now. Anyway, I feel happy to be here in the city for the entire commission and for the comprehensive system. I would like to thank the commissioners, the commission, female, male commissioners, everyone who made it possible to perform this titanic task in 4 years. This is new, fresh air for the implementation, and this is hopeful for the young people. We are seeing change. We're full of hope. We saw this in the last elections in a concrete manner, and when we do education, it's very particular. Old people tell us, you didn't feel, you didn't live it, you don't know what's happening in this country. We are the heirs of violence and blood in the country, which was infiltrating the culture and the gesture, the language, the culture. This is a country that has been fractured by the conflict. Our effort as young people is for peace, not only now, but the seventh vote, the mandate for peace, the strikes, the protest, everything is a call for peace. We have been shouting out, the young people has been shouting out, even with the riot police. We're risking our lives in the streets so that we have a reality, a new reality for all the Colombians. It's so painful to read this report. Every time you read one page, you have to digest it, because we are talking about 3 or 4 generations lost due to the conflict. Young people, generations that were lost for a war that was senseless. We go to the center of Bogota. Our founding fathers wear weapons. We have a military parade to celebrate that. That makes no sense. When we started the peace agreements, we went out to the streets. When we lost the referendum for peace, we went out to the streets to renegotiate. So we have always supporting the process and embracing this legacy with hope. When we walk down the territories, we see the legitimacy. As Vladimir puts it, legitimacy is not only from the government, but also the popular instances, the communities, the indigenous people, the farmers, the Afro-descendants, young people, all the voices that were historically neglected. But now, with the Commission, they find a safe place to be heard. This is the legitimacy, the approach, the outreach. I would like to tell you a story. A month ago, I was in Santander, in Bogota. I didn't know the Truth Commission building. And I went there and I said, maybe they let me in. I knocked on the door. They never asked for signature. They were not frowning on me. And there was a guy showing me the tour on the artisans um, hall. After that, I said, "Are you the logistics?" And they said, "No, I'm the security guard, security head of security." He didn't have any weapons or anything. After talking to Sandra, they gave me some coffee, and they gave me this declaration from the commission. Sandra and Carolina, they are so nice. So this human kindness that was not only from the head of security, Sandra, Carolina, but everyone, the commissioners, the territorial teams, the macro regions. This was so meaningful to me. The communities would feel that they were heard. Their voices were heard, and we feel loved. We'll talk to Pacho, you feel loved. We talk to the commissioners, we feel loved. Ana Cristina, talking to her, we will feel loved. So how can we not feel rooted to a place when you are loved and building jointly processes? This is why this is an initiative. It's a constructive effort. It's a fabric from the regions. It was not imposed. Anna is here, the mother of the chicks. She's a young woman who believes in young people, works with young people, builds with young people, and she is in the effort that the Red Plus generation would be, the V Plus generation would go on to spread the education on the commission. So V Plus is also declaring war on oblivion and war. We are also seeing artistic expression, graffitis, dancing, singing. We are in several departments, and 3 in Argentina, France, Canada, Spain. We are talking about the truth. We are presenting the debate. In Ocaña, they're singing rap. In Medellin, they do graffiti. In the Pacific, they dance. In the Caribbean, they sing. In the universities, in the schools. We were last week in the hospital Uribe to talk about the report to the physicians and nurses, because we want the reality to be in the debate, and the violence that was there historically and that was borne by the communities. Now is the time of peace, and here are the young people. We're working with national institutions and we want to work with international communities for this dear peace, expected peace with the territories. We want to decentralize the truth. It should travel from Bogota to the territories, not only to the capital cities, but to the municipalities, the rural settlements, the municipalities and townships. Whenever an event is called, only you receive the people who agree with you, but we need people who disagree with us to be there too. We want to go to the parks to read the volume and talk to the people, because this should become a heritage for all the Colombian people. So the final report, when it was delivered on 20th June, gave us so much hope. Pacho has left, but this is a recommendation, direct recommendation to the young people in the collective effort. Young people should face the truth of the horrors of armed conflict and build a new country that is in their hands. You are the future. Please don't deepen the death, hatred, and lack of hope. Please follow the recommendations from the Commission. This is the legacy for the young people, and we receive it with joy and responsibility. We are committed to disseminate this in all spaces, feasible and untable spaces. Talking about peace, we combine all the ways of struggle. We are everywhere, in every event, just like ants everywhere. The commissioners, we will see the young people from V Plus everywhere. because the young people will not give up. We will have a better country through the young people. We want to change our journey. We want to abandon the war, the sterile war, and transgressions. We want to walk together towards peace. Sadly, the Commission as an entity of the state will disappear in 20 days, but the road continues, the journey continues. We want to keep going, bring the debate, and we need to keep meeting the minds, and the young people should be supported by the state and non-state institutions so that this is a reality. Do not leave us alone with this legacy. I know paper can withstand anything, but we need conversations, concrete efforts, looking into each other's faces, dancing in the territories. And this requires everyone's support. Friends from the Commission, friends of the Commission, we need 4 years for a report of 8,000 pages. Imagine how many years we need to digest this report and understand it and commission this report into society. So the invitation is to walk together towards peace, towards truth, and build together a country for everyone. Because there's a future if there is truth.
Perspectiva desde la
From your perspective of the Commission and the construction of legacy, well, I would like to say hello to everyone here, Vladimir, Alberto, Daniel. You are part of the organizations that make us feel so proudful. These huge social capital built around the truth. I would like to tell the commissioners from the Committee of Surveillance and Monitoring, we are giving you the social capital of the Truth Commission. It is more important than the report. Many truth commissions throughout the world have had several reports, and due to multiple circumstances, they didn't manage to build such social capital. And this social capital will help produce the transformations that are needed. The Committee of Monitoring and Surveillance, without this capital, social capital, will be merely a 7-people group making an effort. So I hope that it is valued and understood, because this is how the Truth Commission makes its work visible. It is not a report. The report will reach very few, sadly. Very few people will be able to read the report. People will be able to talk about the report. They will be able to debate on the report based on simple elements. The summaries, the handbook, but especially the conversations that are performed and the mobilizations around the contents of the final report. And we made a huge effort here to deliver more than a large document, which is important for the country. For many years, the accrual of over 10,000 pages is a document of enormous historical value for our country for many years to come. But the conversation generated by social mobilization, understanding social mobilization as a capacity to build sense jointly and move around the solutions, that is the capital we are leaving into your hands. This is how I understand it. This is how I see it. Lariza, as you were mentioning, what is the perception of the new relationships of the state? I think it's too early to have any findings on this matter. I would like to thank the contributions in this conversation because they enrich our reflection. However, I think that this state institution is based on a deep understanding of responding to the victims of Colombia, the immense sorrow of this country, this deep harm that this country lived through. And this is a non-institutional mandate, non-functional mandate, a deeply ethical and moral and political mandate. There is no other way to respond other than from our heart. And this is the reason why that all the people who were working at the commission would commit totally. I have had many jobs, maybe as many years I have had, but this is the moment where I'm really surprised by this commitment, such a deep, intimate commitment with their hearts, because we didn't feel we were working for the state or for a device or to fulfill a duty. This was a historical task, an ethical duty to respond to this challenge. We would barely sleep. I wouldn't sleep thinking about, can we respond to this challenge? And in this sense, we quickly understood this was an ethical task, deeply political task. And we thought about public communication for social mobilization. And public communication for social mobilization, I mean the line that accompanied, supported all the time the construction of the report was social dialogue. A social dialogue that started in the early days to build a collective conversation, a social capital that was collectively developed to elevate the level of conversation. A deep, respectful, empathetic listening where the transaction was two ways. It means we were not higher than anyone else. On the contrary, of seeing the courage, the moral of the victims, you feel so little. The pain they went through, the sorrow they went through. In the end, we found that the social dialogue would build this critical mass, enough critical mass. I don't care about the opposition. And quickly, this was an audience that we thought there is a small sector but powerful sector with a huge audience, and the media are with them. The media have a responsibility because they didn't support the spirit of peace in this country. Because this guy, this person says something terrible, an offense, something hurting the country, and the media will go there to reproduce this news. But this is a minority. Building critical mass was a task that social dialogue performed since the first day in their conversations all around the country. Building the report was also a two-way conversation because we had to listen to the sorrow of the others and the sorrow of the perpetrators, the FARC, the paramilitary, those men from the public enforcement, law enforcement who managed to, they didn't even know how. But I was telling Othniel, how did you become such a monster? It's a human question. It is not judging. How can a society produce such people? Nobody's born a guerrilla member. Nobody's born a killer of children and innocent people. There is something so deep here that helped us join up as a team. I think the presence of Pacho was paramount because Pacho is a man with discourse and coherence, moral and political coherence that was always there, encouraging our humanitarian ethical task to be performed by all instances of the state. That means we need to transform the ways of the state. And I was really surprised seeing people who was crying because this was ending. They were angry in public spaces. I don't know if one saw it. We didn't. They didn't understand that we'd come to an end. They didn't understand that this was the first report, and there's a lot to say, a lot to listen to. You don't understand what we mean. So this demonstrates that this is possible, because this is an institution with a particular task of responding to such harm. It's like a holocaust, actually. This is a holocaust. But who in the state has no ethical task and the imperative to build common goods for society? I think this is what allowed us to network and relate on a human level, empathetically with the victims. The victims were a benchmark. They have such moral power, and we saw that we were merely a public servant in the deepest sense of the word.
Lucy.
Thank you, Lucia. I do believe that in the social dialogue, there is a key, important key, or is the key of that innovation in the communication. Thank you all, the panelists. We have to close this session, but we will deepen in some of the topics proposed in the next module, in the next session, which will be moderated by Maria Prada. Thank you very much.
Lariza, antes de ser...
Larissa, before we close, I think there was like a second question, and someone was waving his hand, doing some signs. We wanted to use this space. I call on the name on behalf of the Mayor, Claudia Lopez, and we have given as a recommendation to the government, and for sure the President and Vice President understand that way, that we must continue not only supporting the legacy, but also transforming the institutions and doing the adjustments for the legacy to move forward. In that regard, we are working along with the General Secretary of the Commission and with the father, so the generation can continue. The capital district of Bogota may continue, and hopefully throughout the national territory we can perform the same exercise. For this process to be carried out, we are tuning first the structure, administrative and fiscal structure, so then continue with the missional coordination exercise, and something that is very important, the files, the custody, the care of the files as we progress with the process nationwide, and the commission of the monitoring commission may continue. It will be under custody in the city in Bogota. This will ensure that the file that is under construction jointly, collectively, with the effort of the commissioners, the father, the organizations, the workers, can be maintained in a process of dissemination, understanding that sometimes political willingness exists. It can exist with the new government, but the timing of the administrative coordination prevents the implementation of the recommendations. Father Antonio, and I just wanted to say again, it's a duty. This is a duty. It's a constitutional duty, and hopefully the mayors, governors understand, as the vice president and the president understand very well, who are in office already. I think that to say to the partners, thank you. Without you, we had not been able to do what we did. That's why I tell to the monitoring and surveillance committee the great support for the transformation and social mobilization is this social capital. I will insist forever. Keep them in mind, and let's have this cross-reference. And they were partners who run the extra mile And the majority of these partners didn't work for money. They were not contractors nor operators. They were like spirits. I don't want to foster the chaos. I want to give to the panelists. I'll give you the booklet of Generación Más or Generation Plus to understand what are we doing, what we are doing. Thank you.